Over the past few weeks, we've had the privilege of hearing from voices across the accessibility landscape, each sharing how technology is helping shape a more inclusive world. And today, I'm honored to be joined by our guest, Bill Schiffmiller. Bill is an entrepreneur, he's an inventor, he's an accessibility advocate passionate about auditory wellness. He has spearheaded accessibility projects at Apple Retail. He's founded Akoyo, a consultancy focused on auditory and accessibility matters. And he's been a Forbes contributor, yes, that Forbes, where he shares stories that explore how technology, design, and accessibility intersect to transform participation and connection for millions of people. A lifelong hearing aid user, he has a unique perspective on the challenges and the opportunities within the hearing health and accessibility spaces. And I'm very grateful that he's here to share it with us today. Hello, Bill. Thank you for doing this.
Hello, David. I am so pleased and thrilled to be with you.
Before we get into the real meaty stuff, we do like to start each one of these by asking just a completely random, off the wall, just downright silly question, just to kind of loosen things up and get the conversation flowing. So are you willing to play along?
Let's let it rumble. Rip it out.
All right, Bill. Would you rather only be able to speak in rhyme for a day or sing everything like it's a musical for a day?
Oh, I was singing like a musical all day, even though I can't carry a tune. So I'm a mean singer in the shower. So yeah, I would sing all day long. Whatever is around me, I am going to sing about that.
I love it. I love it. You know, we're all great singers in the shower. I mean, that's the great thing about singing in the shower. So you you grew up as a son of a father who had polio.
That's
You've
correct.
you've been a hearing aid user, like we just mentioned, your entire life. How has all of that shaped what accessibility means to you?
Accessibility is really all about embracing everyone and their differences, and it's all about what are the possibilities. I grew up seeing how my father was marginalized through the story that he told me, and then I got to see how I was marginalized as a kid, being called four eyes and four ears. So go figure that out. So being a kid of the 70s, things were bulky and noticeable. And hearing stick and stones may break my bones, but words may not harm me. That's where I decided, you know what? Get over it, get past it. Let people see for who you are. And it's all about dignity and respect. And that's the way I see accessibility. And one of the things that I talk about with accessibility is I hardly ever say disability. Because disability, if you look at the word dis in that, it means you're broken. We're not broken. We're just built differently. And that's what I like, is embracing our differences.
I love that thought, embracing differences, right? Embracing differences so everyone can participate more fully. Something happened in 2014 that you've actually described as one of the most profound moments in your life. Can you share that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to 2014, I had analog hearing aids. I had a few accessories from Radio Shack in order to amplify things on the phone. Solutions for hearing aids as far as third-party stuff goes were kind of mixed. They never worked. They were never reliable. While at Apple in 2014, there was an announcement of what was called Made for iPhone Hearing Aid, MFI. And Resound, which is a hearing aid manufacturer out of the GN group out of Denmark, Resound is US based, made an announcement. I remember this very well. It was at the Standard Hotel, February 2014. And I had the privilege of being able to try this new technology that would allow me to take my iPhone and pair wirelessly to my hearing aid and have seamless connection. Suddenly, the phone is not my nemesis. Suddenly, I'm getting clarity. I'm getting reliable connection. And what I love about what Bluetooth stand for is connection is not so much about technical connection, but it's also about human connection. So now I could start to build even greater confidence in myself through use of the iPhone. And it has been my go-to every single day. In fact, I'm talking to you MFI to my iPad, seamless. So that was the big game changer for me.
Your work at Apple helped usher in, meaningful change and meaningful solutions to real accessibility challenges. And, you've spent years now, decades really, designing solutions that support hearing health and accessibility. How do those innovations affect not just what people can hear or do, but how they feel, their sense of belonging, and how they participate in the world around them?
So when it comes to auditory matters, the traditional approach is you should get a hearing test. You need to see an audiologist. We're going to get you an audiogram and then suggest a hearing aid. That is institutional, medical, clinical kind of thinking. That did not feel good, especially when you're told what the price is of a prescriptive hearing aid. Now, my hearing aids are anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 a piece, and most people wear a pair. So we're talking about $7,000 to $8,000. What I've noticed since I've been wearing hearing aids since I'm 6 years old to where we are now, and we're in this digital age, and what's wonderful about hearing technology is what digital solutions have provided, but it also introduced new set of challenges. And so in the past, for me, it was about, dude, I need volume. I need amplification on my analog hearing. Spinal Tap, the movie, and it's like, dude, I need number 11 on the volume dial. That's what I needed. But the problem with that back then was it records feedback. And therefore you get noticed and you're conscious of it, so you start to feel awkward. Come digital solution, it's like, okay, now we can develop your profile. Now we can figure out where your discrepancies are. Now we can figure out where your sensitivities are in given situation. And so now, having one hearing aid, having tried all kinds of digital hearing aids, where each hearing aid manufacturer has different philosophy behind that tech solution. May it be, hey, we want to have more emphasis on speech clarity, or we want more emphasis on sound or noise management. Now, part of what we need to do with hearing aid users, or even anyone with any kind of hearing apparatus, is what kind of control can I have to manage my situation? And that's where we're at right now is what are the better controls in those situations? And it's getting better. And when you don't have that kind of management, that were to your question about how does it make you feel? Well, it's going to make me feel cranky or irritable or inability to function properly at work or even have wonderful relationship with those around you. So those kinds of forces have a huge impact on the way you feel.
And the reality is we live in a noisy world, right?
No doubt about it.
And noise is more than just an annoyance, right? And that noise management is such an important part of our lived experience, our experience in the world. You even I think you provide workshops that help companies, organizations, raise their own awareness and help mitigate some of this.
So what we do for our client is the noise in the workplace workshop. This is the awareness of how does noise impact everyone. And let's face it, we're on Zoom calls, Microsoft Teams, or Google video conferencing all day long. That is demanding a lot of attention visually, cognitively, auditorily. And you have to always be on the go, be sharp, And that's very challenging. Then you have those around you. You might have somebody across the room who talks in a certain way with a certain pitch or whatever, or one is a chronic laugher and you can't stand that laughter or what have you. That can affect you. So it's all about how do we find a way to create better communication dynamic between our colleagues, our employers, and even with ourselves. How do we work together? How do we not necessarily compromise, but how do we collaborate? And so it's about how do we find a way to the best of our ability to accommodate so that we can all excel. And when we all excel, Dave, we start to produce better. We start to feel better. And guess what? Whatever the company does, what they output is better. And then now you have a better outcome for the company. It affects their bottom line.
You've talked very eloquently about how a poor listening and hearing experience in the moment can impact people. You've also, just did a really great job of explaining that there is benefits not just to the individual, but to the company, to the space, to the location, whatever the case might be. Even with all of this awareness, hearing health can sometimes still be an overlooked part of overall wellness. But as you mentioned, it can have a big impact on our mental health, our cognitive function, and how we connect with others. Uh, I'd love for you to share your perspective on why hearing health is so important for our overall health and the way we experience the world.
Yeah, so for a long, long time, and we're just starting to get better, is for most people, there will be a gradual decline in their hearing. Gradual means you you become accustomed to it, unbeknownst to you. And by the time it's too late, the TV is blasting, you're having shouting matches, not arguing, but shouting matches with your loved one, and it becomes a very unpleasant environment. And you start to become withdrawn socially. May it be at work, at home, and when you're out and about. So now we're starting to realize post-pandemic, how do we manage our overall well-being? And we need to bring in the auditory aspect of that into the equation. We spend a lot of time talking about breathing, understanding our mental state, how do we cope in those situations, but very seldom is any kind of auditory forces affecting us. And then we also need to get past the notion of, well, that person has an earbud and he's in the meeting and that's rude. Time out. Why did that person have an earbud? And is that person participating? Is that person delivering? If so, then think that earbud is doing something. My hearing aid has a different form factor than an earbud or a headphone. But you know what? It's delivering the same thing at a different kind of degree of audio delivery to give you clarity, to give you noise management, or to give you a bump in frequency, what have you.
We talked about how the world is a noisy place. What role do you see Bluetooth playing in helping all of us manage that noise?
So look at solutions that are out there. And, we talked about prescriptive hearing aids. There are over-the-counter hearing aids that are out there on the market. The ones that I look at are nuanced audio. What are they doing with hearing glasses, which is less obtrusive, a little more affordable, and it's cool. It's a lifestyle-looking brand. And then you have Apple AirPod Pro 2. And we talked about noticing earbuds. Well, now this is where AirPods has been elevated. You have a choice where it's been FDA approved as a clinical hearing aid. And then there are other solutions that can go along with it. And this is what I love what Bluetooth has done, and that is Auracast. And Auracast is, to me, is hearing accessibility for all. This is where, oh my gosh, I can be in any given situation as long as there are Auracast enabled transmitters that go into these resound video hearing aids that I have, or any Auracast enabled hearing devices, where I can get clarity. And this is not T-coil. T-coil is old school, and T-coil has never worked well for me because I could never find it. And even if you found it, the quality was kind of iffy. But with Auracast, this is for everyone. This is not just for somebody like me with a hearing loss and using hearing aids. It's about clarity. And Dave, when you and I last saw each other and you brought me to that big session room at CES, and what was that, like a room designed for what, 500 participants?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, about that. So here I am hanging out in the back. You have the team from Listen Tech, you have the team from Resound. I get set up, and I can hear the moderator preparing his next question. That's remarkable. That's unbelievable. And you can have amazing physical speakers designed for the room, and they worked okay, but with Auracast, oh baby, this is sexy, awesome stuff to my ears. I am hearing every word, and even the two representatives from Resound who are audiologists, and they know I have a profound loss, and they go, you're able to multitask and hear what they're doing. They're saying up front, that's remarkable, and that's a game changer. And then also, I had that experience at Lincoln Center. You interviewed Richard Einhorn. It was his concert, and I cried. I cried at that concert because I was able to make out all of the nuances of that musical experience. The soprano, the tenor, the choir, the instrument, each of the section of the orchestra. Before it will all be meshed together. Here, ooh, I love the deep tenor. I love the sweetness of the soprano and all that. And it was so meaningful, so impactful. That entertainment-wise, that's amazing. The communication-wise, like in those sessions, and where we're going forward. Of course, we have it with our television set where we can have it transmitted. Amazing. It's cloudy. And then you start to pick up things. And you know what? Your mind starts to open up. Ugh, everything in front of you starts to open up. And the quality is unbelievable. The connection is quite reliable.
Can you help us understand what it's like to see how solutions for people with hearing loss and solutions that are common consumer audio products and devices, when those two things are using the same technology, the same method of providing audio accessibility, can you help us understand what that means for destigmatizing hearing loss and hearing access challenges?
We're all in the room hearing the same thing. Now, prior to Auracast, and this still goes on in many situations, and HUNA does a very good job in trying to provide clarity. But with me, with my hearing, I don't necessarily hear every single word. And I have to try to figure out with the collection of words that I hear, how do I put it in context before I can process and respond. There's a slight delay there. What Auracast does is it allows somebody with decent hearing and somebody with not so decent hearing like me to be able to get as much clarity together. We're hearing the same thing together. And that is where I love how it brings all of us together. And it's just quite remarkable. Like, I was with somebody at the Lincoln Center go, oh, did you hear that little piece? And I go, yeah, you too? Yeah. So it brings us all together. I know I said that 3 times, but I can't emphasize that enough.
There are people who experience abrupt hearing loss by all means.
Mhm. Mhm.
There are also people who, as you mentioned, experience gradual hearing loss over years and decades. And I think sometimes when we think about hearing solutions, we focus a lot on what I guess is the end of the hearing health spectrum, right? When we are being reactive and needing to address challenges. And I'm wondering, do you see an opportunity for a technology like Auracast to exist in public locations to help us cut through the noise and to be able to use consumer devices like earbuds, headphones, or whatever to help us isolate out the noise that we want from the noise that we don't want? Do you see implications on overall hearing health over the long term if individuals take advantage of that capability?
Absolutely. So part of the Auracast solution, or I should say part of the auditory health solution, why Auracast is a big piece of it, is hearing protection. Make sure that you are properly protecting your ears, starting with volume. And there are great products out there like earpiece. Earpiece are wonderful earbuds, and they filter out up to a certain decibel level. And by the way, here noise is not just about how loud something is. It's also about how disruptive, how frequent that is. And then you also have to think about the spaces that you're in that need some kind of attenuation solution. So if you can manage your volume, manage the protection that you can, and then embrace broadcast for clarity, so you don't have to try bumping up the volume of the conversation you're having or the dialogue you're hearing. But right now, Orcast is not necessarily a two-way communication, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's really a one-way and one-to-many. But to have better um, listening experiences where you do not have to bump up the volume on that to drown the other people. Why not find a compromise like, hey, let's get it to an optimal level while reducing the background. So it's about how do we find that nice balance and imagine throughout the day, you're at the office and all classes in most spaces throughout the office. How cool would that be? Where you could just go in and it's got a meeting or it's a one-on-one or one-to-many. There's a mic already set up in there with the transmitter. You just go, hey, just find it like you would with the Wi-Fi. That, to me, that's golden. That is absolutely golden. If I can have that all day long, and then ultimately, Dave, there will come a time that, you know what, that's been a good ride, but it looks like I really do need some kind of hearing aid, whatever that's going to be. I mean, the rate of change is crazy, but the way we understand it today with prescriptive hearing aids, I will be prepared and willing to take a look at that because I've been taking care of myself. It's no different from cholesterol. How do I manage my cholesterol? By watching the way I eat. Well, let's watch the way you hear.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share, before we cut you loose?
There has never been a greater opportunity today to seek out accessibility solution, period. Whatever the challenge type you have, and I'm not saying that you're going to be living in less pain and all that, but there is more democratization of technology to give you independence. Now we have things at our fingertip, and if you go to an Android or iPhone and you go into the setting, you're going to see a whole slew of features on accessibility. That has never happened before. And what's wonderful about these things is we all can benefit from it. We all use accessibility features in one way or another. That's what's amazing about it today. So when I hear the stigmas around hearing loss and it's too expensive, yes, but there are lots of other solutions out there and they're affordable. So those days of stigma is gone in my book. It may be hard internally, but as Cher said in Moonstruck, snap out of it. Get over that and embrace the technology that's in front of you. It may not be perfect, but it's really well worth the try.
It's been a real pleasure having you, Bill. We really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you for all your efforts to raise awareness about the importance of hearing health and accessibility. Your work is helping others lead fuller, healthier lives.
Well, thank you, Dave, and most importantly, thank you, Bluetooth, for making this possible. And people may take Bluetooth for granted because of everything that we use, but auditorily, I'm rock and rolling with you. So thank you so much, and most appreciated.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Thanks again.